Today I want to dive into something super interesting that came out recently, an interview with Zenless Zone Zero's producer Lee Zhenyu. And honestly, if you're into this game or you've been curious about why its characters and visuals hit so differently compared to other gacha titles, this is one of those interviews that really opens the curtain on how things are made. I'm going to break down what he said, what it means for the game's future, and yes, we've got to talk about the elephant in the room. Or should I say, the sweetheart in the room, NPC Sweety, who has fans wondering if she could actually become playable someday. If you want to save up to 23% on your Zenless Zone Zero top-ups, check out lootbar.gg. Here you can buy 3,280 monochromes for only $39, while it's $50 in-game. So this way you're saving $11 on Lootbar. I just entered my UID, picked my server, no password needed. And just like that, the monochromes appeared on my account. And look, I still got the first-time double bonus, same as with the in-game top-up. Lootbar has over 20,000 positive reviews on Trustpilot and more than 90,000 positive user reviews across Hoyoverse games. I've been using it for over a year now, even for my giveaways, so I can personally recommend it. New users also get an extra 10% off coupon, so click the link in the description and start saving today. Now, going into this interview, a lot of us probably assumed the magic behind Zenless Zone Zero's visuals was some kind of secret formula, like maybe there's a handful of genius artists tucked away at Hoyoverse, or some advanced tech pipeline that keeps everything looking so polished. But when Lee was asked how the characters are made, his answer was surprisingly down to earth. He said the philosophy is basically Nyan tsude choshen shisu keru, which means keep refining, keep adjusting, keep grinding. It's not about shortcuts or sudden flashes of inspiration. It's about persistence. If something feels off, they fix it. If a character doesn't quite land, they go back in, polish it again, and repeat until it finally works. And that attitude explains why Zenless Zone Zero feels so slick. On the surface, it's all style and flair, whether it's the characters, the UI, or the animations. But behind the scenes, it's actually really gritty. The team is stubborn, they're perfectionists, and they're not afraid to push right up to the deadline to squeeze out that last bit of quality. Lee even shared how characters like Miyabi, Yixuan, and Seed were especially tough to nail down. Seed in particular went through so many adjustments that Lee was literally calling back to the office from Japan while attending CDEC to keep the iteration going. That image, him at an awards event but still on the phone about a single character, says everything about their never stop tweaking philosophy. One thing I found really cool was how they talked about the order of character creation. The first character they actually built was Ambi Deara, and it wasn't because she was meant to be the poster child from the start, but because a sword-wielding fighter is just such a classic action game archetype. Think about it. From Nier, Automata to Metal Gear Rising, even Bayonetta and God of War, so many action games circle back to the iconic blade user. It gave the team a familiar anchor point to test mechanics and visuals before they went wild with more experimental ideas. But here's the part that really shapes ZZZ's identity. They don't design characters in isolation. Lee explained that they often create them as factions or teams first. Instead of focusing only on an individual, they ask, how does this character's silhouette look next to others in their group? How do they contrast, balance each other, and stand out visually? That's why factions like Victoria Housekeeping or Obel Squad feel so cohesive. It's not an accident, it's built into the process. And what about costumes? Lee said alternate outfits like Ellen Jo's school uniform or the summer costumes for Ukanami Yuzuha and Alice Timefield aren't just cosmetic fan service, they're intentional. Because ZZZ is set in a modern urban world, the devs want the characters to reflect that with diverse modern fashion. It adds realism and also gives players fresh perspectives on their favorite characters. He even said they don't want to lock a character into a single, fixed image. but instead show different sides of their personality. That's why someone like Yixuan, who's normally defined by her sect leader aura, can also get outfits that break that mold and reveal another layer to her. Now here's where it gets really interesting for us as players. Lee admitted there's no strict production pipeline. Characters can start as a scenario idea, an art sketch, or even from the animation team's vision of how a weapon should move in combat. And because it's so flexible, they can pivot if something unexpected happens. Which leads us back to Sweety. Right now, she's just an NPC, but she's blown up in popularity online. Reddit is full of people simping over her. GameFAQs had polls with a third of players voting, yes, she could be playable if enough fans ask. And even on the official wiki discussions, people are debating whether she could realistically fit into combat lore. Lee didn't confirm anything about Sweety, but his philosophy leaves the door open. Remember, he said if the community responds strongly to a character, the team keeps adjusting and refining. That persistence means if hype is strong enough, an NPC can evolve into a playable agent. It's not guaranteed, and there are real questions about whether Sweety's personality or design fits into combat. But history shows Hoyoverse does sometimes listen. Just look at Honkai Impact 3rd, where fan-favorite NPCs eventually got added as playable Valkyries. ZZZ could easily follow that pattern. Another part of the interview that stood out to me was how Lee views his own role. He doesn't really see himself as a producer in the traditional sense, dictating everything from the top down. He sees himself more as a supporter and problem solver. When different departments, like animation, modeling, and effects, hit roadblocks, he steps in to help them find a solution. And when staff feel stuck, he encourages them to share ideas freely, no matter what their role is. That kind of openness is why ZZZ feels like it has such a unique style. It's not just one person's vision, it's the collective energy of a team that shares the same taste and artistic sensibility. And this actually makes sense when you look at Lee's background. He started in video production, making MADs and PVs for fun, before moving into games. His specialty was post-production, taking raw footage, balancing tones, and unifying different elements into a coherent whole. That same skill now drives how he manages ZZZ's art style. Different artists might have different techniques, but Lee helps bring it all together so the final product feels consistent and polished. If you zoom out, the message of this interview is simple but powerful. ZZ's looks and feels amazing, not because of some secret tech, but because the team obsesses over details, listens to the community, and refuses to stop tweaking until it works. It's messy, it's stubborn, and sometimes it pushes them right up to the deadline. But that persistence is the beating heart of the game's style. And when you think about Sweety in that context, it actually makes sense why people are hopeful. If enough fans love her, and if the devs feel she can be molded into the game's combat system, she has a real chance. Nothing is confirmed, but the precedent is there. So let me throw this to you guys. What do you think? Should NPCs like Sweety make the jump to being playable? Would you pull for her if she was added as even an A rank? Or do you think the devs should focus on brand new characters instead of reworking NPCs? Drop your thoughts in the comments because honestly, this could be one of the coolest fan-driven developments in ZZZ's future. That's all for today's breakdown. If you enjoyed this kind of deep dive into developer interviews, character creation, and how it ties into the bigger picture, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. We'll keep following these updates, and who knows, maybe the next interview will give us even more hints about where ZZZ is headed. Save up to 23% on the current banners at lootbar.gg. Just enter your UID and server. The link is in the description.